The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of the small apartment as Molly Harper rushed to get ready for work. The smell of toast and coffee filled the tiny kitchen where her daughter Lily sat at the table, munching on cereal and drawing in her notebook. "Mom, do you think we can go to the beach this weekend?" Lily asked, pushing her dark curls out of her eyes. Zoe's family went last week, and she brought back the coolest shells. Molly glanced at the calendar hanging on the fridge. The boxes, filled with her work schedule, morning shifts at the diner, evening shifts at the convenience store, and weekend hours cleaning offices. There wasn't a single day without something written in it. "We'll see, honey," she said, the words she used when she didn't want to make promises she couldn't keep. "I might be able to switch some hours around." The truth was, even if she had the gas money to drive to the coast would put a dent in their carefully balanced budget. Since Tom had walked out 5 years ago when Lily was just 4, Molly had become a master of stretching every dollar. "Finish up now. The bus will be here soon," Molly said, packing her daughter's lunch, a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and a small cookie she'd saved from her shift at the diner yesterday. After dropping Lily at the bus stop, Molly hurried to her morning job. Her boss at the diner, a kind-hearted older woman named Jenny, greeted her with concern in her eyes. "You look dead on your feet, girl. How many hours did you work yesterday?" Molly tied her apron around her waist and shrugged. "Just the usual. I'm fine." Jenny didn't look convinced but didn't push it. That was one of the things Molly appreciated about her boss. She cared without prying too much. The morning rush kept Molly busy, running between tables with plates of pancakes and refilling coffee cups. Her feet ached in her worn sneakers, but she kept a smile on her face. Tips were better when customers saw cheerfulness rather than exhaustion. During her break, she sat on a milk crate behind the diner, eating a sandwich and checking her phone for messages from Lily's school. There was also a text from the landlord, reminding her that rent would increase next month. Molly closed her eyes for a moment, trying not to panic. She'd figure it out somehow. She always did. When her shift ended at 2, Molly collected her tips and headed to the mailbox before going home. Bills, advertisements, and a large envelope with official-looking stamps caught her attention. It was thicker than the others, with her name typed neatly on the front. For a moment, her heart sank, thinking it might be some kind of legal trouble. Back in the apartment, Molly set the mail on the kitchen counter and took a quick shower before her next job. The official envelope nagged at her mind, but she didn't have time to deal with it now. Later that evening, after her second shift and picking up Lily from the after-school program, Molly finally sat down at the kitchen table with the mysterious envelope. Lily was in the living room watching her allowed 30 minutes of TV. "Please don't be bad news," Molly whispered as she carefully opened it. Inside was a letter from a law firm she'd never heard of and several documents filled with legal language. She scanned the first paragraph and froze. "To inform you of the passing of your great-uncle Harold Parker." Molly barely remembered Great-Uncle Harold. He was her grandfather's brother, a quiet man who had visited once or twice when she was very young. She'd sent him Christmas cards until her grandmother died, but they'd lost touch after that. Reading further, Molly's hand began to shake. "Has named you as the sole beneficiary of his estate, including the Ocean View Inn property located at 1247 Coastal Highway." She read the sentence 3 times, sure she was misunderstanding. "Mom." Lily's voice startled her. "What's wrong? You look weird." Molly looked up at her daughter, unable to find words for a moment. "Nothing's wrong, sweetie. I just got some surprising news." She pulled Lily onto her lap, though at 9 years old she was getting almost too big for this. "Remember how I've told you about your great-great-uncle Harold? The one who lived near the ocean?" Lily scrunched up her face. "The one who sent me the seashell necklace for my birthday once?" "That's him," Molly said, surprised Lily remembered. "Well, it seems he passed away recently." "Oh," Lily said solemnly. "That's sad." "Yes, it is," Molly agreed. "But there's something else. He left us his hotel, the one by the ocean." "A whole hotel?" Lily's eyes widened. "Like, with swimming pools and room service and everything?" Molly laughed despite herself. "I'm not sure about room service, but yes, a whole hotel. She picked up one of the photos included with the documents. The Ocean View Inn was a large Victorian-style building painted pale blue with white trim. It had a wide porch wrapped around the front and a view of the water in the background. It looked like something from a postcard or a movie, not something that could possibly belong to them. The next morning, Molly called the lawyer whose name was on the letter. The conversation left her dizzy with possibilities. "The property has been maintained, but your uncle was getting on in years," Mr. Patterson explained. "It needs some updating, but it's fully operational. There's a small staff already in place. Your uncle was quite clear that he wanted you to have it." "But I don't know the first thing about running a hotel," Molly protested. "That's not unusual." "For heirs," the lawyer assured her. "The current manager has been there for years. You could keep things as they are, sell the property, or move there and take over. It's entirely up to you." After hanging up, Molly sat at her kitchen table for a long time thinking. The practical choice would be to sell. They could use the money to move to a better apartment, maybe even a small house. She could cut back on work hours and spend more time with Lily. But something about the photo of that blue Victorian building by the sea tugged at her heart. A fresh start, a place where they wouldn't struggle just to get by. That evening, she picked up Lily early from the after-school program. They sat at their favorite spot in the park, sharing a small ice cream cone as a treat. "I've been thinking about Uncle Harold's hotel," Molly said carefully. "Are we going to sell it and be rich?" Lily asked, catching a drip of chocolate ice cream with her finger. Molly smiled. "Not exactly. I was thinking, what if we moved there? What if we ran the hotel ourselves?" Lily stopped eating. "Move? But what about school, and Zoe, and your jobs? You'd start at a new school, one near the ocean, and I wouldn't need all those jobs because we'd have the hotel," Molly explained. "It would be a big change, but maybe a good one." "Would we live in the hotel? Could I have my own room? A big one?" Molly laughed. "I think so. There's an owner's apartment inside." Lily was quiet for a moment, thinking it over with all the seriousness a 9-year-old could muster. "I think we should do it," she finally declared. "It sounds like an adventure." Looking at her daughter's hopeful face, Molly felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time, a sense of possibility. The next week was a whirlwind of activity. Molly gave notice at all 3 jobs, spoke with Lily's school about transferring records, and talked with Mr. Patterson about the details of taking over the Ocean View Inn. They didn't have much to pack. Their furniture was mostly secondhand and not worth moving across 3 states. They donated most of it and packed their clothes, books, and personal items into their old car. The night before they left, Molly stood in the empty apartment, memories washing over her, bringing baby Lily home, the nights she'd cried after. Tom left. The birthday parties with homemade cakes, the Christmas mornings with presents wrapped in newspaper because gift wrap was too expensive. This place represented years of struggle but also resilience. They had survived here. Now it was time to do more than just survive. "Ready for our adventure?" she asked Lily, who was bouncing with excitement by the door. "Ready," Lily declared, clutching her backpack filled with treasures only a child would consider essential for such a journey. As they drove away from the only neighborhood Lily had ever known, Molly felt equal parts terror and hope. What awaited them at the Ocean View Inn was a mystery, but whatever challenges came their way, they would face them together. The journey took longer than Molly expected. What should have been a 10-hour drive stretched to 14 as they stopped for bathroom breaks, affordable meals at roadside diners, and once to fix a flat tire. Lily had fallen asleep hours ago, her head resting on her stuffed rabbit, legs curled up on the back seat surrounded by snack wrappers and activity books. "Just a little further," Molly whispered, more to herself than to her sleeping daughter. Her eyes burned from exhaustion, and her back ached from hours behind the wheel. The GPS on her old phone announced they were only 20 minutes away from the Ocean View Inn. The coastal highway curved along cliffs overlooking the dark sea. Moonlight sparkled on the water far below, creating a magical scene that would have taken Molly's breath away if she weren't so tired. After another bend in the road, she finally saw it. A small town nestled between the mountains and the ocean. its lights twinkling in the darkness. "Lily," she said softly, reaching back to touch her daughter's knee. "Lily, wake up. We're almost there." The little girl stirred, rubbing her eyes and peering out the window. "Is that it? Is that where our hotel is?" "That's the town. The hotel should be just ahead." 5 minutes later, the GPS guided them onto a narrow road leading to a large building set apart from the main town. In the darkness, Molly could make out a Victorian silhouette against the night sky, much like in the photo she'd received, but somehow more impressive in person. "Wow," Lily breathed as they pulled into the small parking lot. Only 3 other cars were parked there, surprising for what seemed to be a decent-sized hotel. "It looks like a castle." The building was 3 stories tall with a round tower, on one corner and a wide porch wrapping around the front. Even in the dim light of the parking lot, Molly could see peeling paint and sagging steps, signs that the place needed some care. "Let's go inside and find someone who can show us to our rooms," Molly said, trying to sound confident as she helped Lily out of the car. They grabbed only what they needed for the night: a small suitcase with pajamas and toiletries. The rest could wait until morning. Climbing the creaky steps to the front entrance, Molly noticed a dim light glowing behind heavy curtains in the windows. At least someone was still awake. She pushed open the heavy wooden door and a bell jingled softly. The lobby was spacious with high ceilings and old-fashioned furniture that might have been elegant 20 years ago but now looked worn and dated. A crystal chandelier hung overhead, though several bulbs were burnt out, leaving the room in partial shadow. At the reception desk, a man in his 30s slouched in a chair, scrolling through his phone. He glanced up when they entered but didn't stand. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone making it clear he hoped the answer was no. "Yes, hello," Molly said, approaching the desk with Lily trailing behind her. "I'm Molly Harper. I believe Mr. Patterson, the lawyer, called ahead about our arrival." The man, his nameplate read Greg Wilson, night manager, looked them up and down. Molly suddenly felt self-conscious about her wrinkled clothes and messy ponytail. Lily's t-shirt had a ketchup stain from lunch and her sneakers were scuffed and dirty. "Mr. Patterson?" Greg repeated slowly. "I don't know any Mr. Patterson, and I don't have any reservations under Harper." "Oh, there must be some misunderstanding," Molly said, digging through her purse for the folder of papers the lawyer had sent. "I'm not a guest exactly. I'm the new owner. My great-uncle Harold Parker left the hotel to me in his will." Greg's expression shifted from boredom to disbelief. He sat up straighter, looking at Molly more carefully. "You?" he said, making no effort to hide his skepticism. "You're claiming to be the new owner of the Ocean View Inn?" "I'm not claiming anything," Molly said, finding the papers and placing them on the counter. "It's all right here. Mr. Patterson said he notified the staff." Greg glanced at the papers but didn't take them. "Look, lady, I've worked here for 8 years. Mr. Parker never mentioned any relatives coming to take over, and even if he did have family, why would he leave this place to—" He gestured vaguely at her appearance. Molly felt her cheeks burn. "To what? A single mom? Someone who doesn't meet your standards of what a hotel owner should look like?" "Mom," Lily whispered, tugging at her sleeve, "I'm really tired." Greg sighed dramatically. "Look, we're fully booked tonight, no rooms available." Molly glanced around the empty lobby, then out the window at the nearly vacant parking lot. "Fully booked? There are only 3 cars outside. Large groups arriving early tomorrow," Greg said dismissively. "Everything's reserved." "I don't need a reservation," Molly insisted, her patience wearing thin. "According to these papers, there's an owner's apartment. We'll stay there." Greg laughed. "The owner's suite? Lady, even if you were who you say you are, which I doubt, I can't just hand over the keys to our most expensive rooms based on some papers you printed off the internet. They're not from the internet. They're official legal documents." "Sure they are," Greg said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Look, even if Mr. Parker did have some long-lost relative, which I never heard about, it wouldn't be someone who shows up in the middle of the night looking like, well," he gestured at her again. "The owner of this place is a respected businessman." "Was," Molly corrected, her voice quiet but firm. Harold Parker was a respected businessman, and he was my great-uncle, whether you want to believe it or not. Greg's phone buzzed, and he looked down at it, clearly done with the conversation. There's a motel about 5 miles back toward town. Not fancy, but they might have vacancies. Lily was leaning against Molly now, eyes half closed. The child was exhausted, and Molly wasn't far behind. She'd been so focused on getting here that she hadn't considered they might not be welcomed. Is there a manager I could speak with? She asked, trying a different approach. Someone who might have been notified about the change in ownership? That would be Mrs. Chen, Greg replied without looking up from his phone. But she doesn't come in until morning, 9 o'clock. Molly checked her watch. It was nearly 1 a.m., 8 more hours before she could sort this out. Fine, she said finally. We'll be back in the morning to speak with Mrs. Chen. She gathered her papers and took Lily's hand, heading for the door. Good. Luck with that, Greg called after them. And next time you try to scam a hotel, maybe dress the part a little better. Outside on the porch, Lily looked up at her mother with worried eyes. Where are we going to sleep? Molly looked at her car, then back at the beautiful hotel that was supposed to be their fresh start. She thought about driving to find the motel Greg had mentioned, but she was too tired to safely drive any further tonight. We'll sleep in the car just for tonight, she said, trying to sound like it was an adventure rather than a disappointment. Like camping, and tomorrow we'll come back and sort everything out. Promise? Lily asked, her small voice uncertain. Molly looked up at the starry sky, then back at her daughter. I promise this is just a bump in the road. Tomorrow will be better. They returned to the car, reclining the seats as far as they would go. Molly covered Lily with her jacket and watched as her daughter quickly fell back asleep. But sleep didn't come easily for Molly. She lay awake, watching the moonlight on the water and wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake bringing them here. Morning would tell. Molly woke with a stiff neck and an aching back. Sleeping in the car had been even more uncomfortable than she'd expected. Sunlight streamed through the windshield, warming the interior despite the early hour. She checked her watch. 7:15 a.m. Lily was still asleep in the back seat, curled up under Molly's jacket. Careful not to wake her, Molly slipped out of the car and stretched her sore muscles. The morning view of the Ocean View Inn was both better and worse than what she'd seen last night. In daylight, she could appreciate the hotel's beautiful architecture, the detailed woodwork around the windows, the charming tower with its copper roof turned green with age. But she also noticed more clearly the peeling paint, missing shingles, and overgrown garden. It's still beautiful, she whispered to herself. Just needs some love. A gas station was visible down the road. Molly decided to walk there to freshen up and buy breakfast before Lily woke up. 20 minutes later, she returned with 2 breakfast sandwiches, orange juice, and coffee. She had also washed her face, brushed her teeth, and combed her hair in the gas station bathroom. Rise and shine, sleepyhead, she called softly, opening the car door. I've got breakfast. Lily stirred, her hair sticking up in all directions. Where are we? She asked groggily before memories of the previous night came flooding back. Oh, the hotel. Yep. And look how pretty it is in the sunshine, Molly said, pointing to the blue Victorian building. We're going to talk to Mrs. Chen at 9 o'clock. She's the manager and she'll help us get settled. They ate their breakfast sitting on a bench near the parking lot, watching as the town below came to life. A few cars drove past, and Molly noticed some of them turning into the hotel's parking lot. Staff arriving for the morning shift, she guessed. You think they'll believe us today? Lily asked, sipping her juice. They'll have to, Molly replied, more confidently than she felt. I've got all the papers right here. Mrs. Chen will understand. After breakfast, they used the gas station bathroom again to change clothes and make themselves presentable. Molly put on her one nice blouse, saved for job interviews, and helped Lily into a clean dress. They brushed their teeth, and Molly even applied a touch of mascara and lip gloss. If Greg thought appearances mattered, she'd do what she could with what she had. How do we look? She asked Lily, who was attempting to tame her curls with a small hairbrush. Like hotel owners, Lily declared with a grin that revealed a missing front tooth. At 5 minutes to 9, they walked back into the Ocean View Inn. The lobby looked different in daylight, less gloomy but more clearly in need of updates. The furniture was outdated, and the once elegant carpet was worn thin in high-traffic areas. A different person stood behind the front desk now. A young woman with glasses who looked up with a smile when they entered. "Good morning. Welcome to the Ocean View Inn. Do you have a reservation?" Her voice was cheerful and her name tag read Zoe. "Good morning," Molly replied. "Actually, I'm here to see Mrs. Chen. I believe she's expecting me." Before Zoe could respond, a small, elegant woman in her 60s emerged from an office behind the reception desk. She wore a crisp blue suit and her silver-streaked black hair was pulled back in a neat bun. "I'm Lin Chen," she said, extending her hand. "How can I help you?" "I'm Molly Harper," Molly said, shaking Mrs. Chen's hand. "Harold Parker's great-niece. I believe Mr. Patterson from the law firm called you about me." Mrs. Chen's eyes widened slightly. "Ms. Harper, yes, of course. Mr. Patterson did call, but he didn't mention when you'd be arriving." She glanced at Lily, who was hiding slightly behind her mother. "And who might this young lady be?" "This is my daughter Lily," Molly said, gently pushing Lily forward. "Lily, say hello to Mrs. Chen." "Hello," Lily said shyly. "Do you work at our hotel?" Mrs. Chen's eyebrows rose even higher at the words "our hotel," but she recovered quickly and smiled at Lily. "I do. I've managed the Ocean View Inn for 15 years now." She turned back to Molly. "Why don't we talk in my office? Zoe, could you bring us some tea and maybe a hot chocolate for our young guest?" Zoe nodded, and Mrs. Chen led them to her office, a small room with walls lined with filing cabinets and a window overlooking the garden. "Please sit down," she said, gesturing to 2 chairs across from her desk. "I must say, this is quite unexpected. Mr. Parker rarely spoke of family." "We weren't close," Molly admitted, sitting down and placing her folder of documents on the desk. "I only met him a few times when I was very young. I was as surprised as anyone when Mr. Patterson contacted me about the inheritance." Mrs. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "I see. Well, Mr. Patterson did verify everything with me last week. The Ocean View Inn is indeed yours now, Ms. Harper." She looked closely at Molly. "Though I'm curious. We tried to reach you last night when you didn't arrive as scheduled." "We did arrive," Molly said, her voice cooling slightly. "After midnight. The night manager, Greg, refused to believe who I was. He wouldn't give us a room, so we slept in our car." Mrs. Chen's face flushed, with anger. "He did what? That's completely unacceptable. I'm so terribly sorry, Miss Harper." "It's Molly, please. Molly," Mrs. Chen corrected herself. "I can't apologize enough for Greg's behavior. Rest assured I'll be having a serious discussion with him." "Thank you," Molly said, relaxing a bit. "To be fair, we did arrive very late, and I probably didn't look my best after driving all day." "That's no excuse," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "Now let me show you to the owner's suite so you can properly settle in." Zoe knocked and entered with a tray of drinks. Lily happily accepted the hot chocolate, complete with whipped cream on top. As they sipped their drinks, Mrs. Chen explained the current state of the hotel. Mr. Parker was a wonderful man, but in recent years his health declined, and so did his attention to the business. "We've been operating at about 60% capacity for the past year. Is that why there were so few cars in the parking lot last night? Even though Greg claimed you were fully booked?" Molly asked. Mrs. Chen looked troubled. "We most certainly were not fully booked. In fact, we had at least 15 vacant rooms last night." She made a note on a pad. "That's concerning." After finishing their drinks, Mrs. Chen gave them a tour of the hotel. The building had 25 guest rooms, a small restaurant, a parlor that served as a lounge, and a library. The owner's suite was on the 3rd floor, a spacious apartment with 2 bedrooms, a living area, and a small kitchen. "This will be your home now," Mrs. Chen said, unlocking the door to the suite. The rooms were dusty but beautiful, with high ceilings, large windows overlooking the ocean, and antique furniture. Lily immediately ran to the window to look at the view. "Mom, I can see the whole beach from here." Molly joined her daughter at the window, taking in the panoramic view of the coastline. For the first time since they'd arrived, she felt hopeful. "Now," Mrs. Chen said, "there's something else we should discuss." Her tone had grown serious. "The hotel's finances. I've been trying to make sense of the books for months, but something isn't adding up. Perhaps you'd like to look at them with fresh eyes?" Molly turned away from the window. "What do you mean?" "I believe someone has been taking money from the hotel," Mrs. Chen said quietly, "and I have my suspicions about who it might be." Molly settled into a chair across from Mrs. Chen in the hotel's small office. Stacks of papers, folders, and receipts covered the desk between them. Lily had been happily set up in the hotel library with books and colored pencils, supervised by Zoe, who had taken an immediate liking to the girl. "I've been trying to make sense of these accounts for months," Mrs. Chen explained, opening a thick ledger. "Your uncle was old-fashioned. He preferred paper records to computer systems, which made it easier for someone to manipulate things." Molly leaned forward, studying the columns of numbers. In her previous life, before becoming a single mom juggling multiple jobs, she had worked in bookkeeping for a small construction company. Numbers had always made sense to her, even when people didn't. "What exactly are you seeing?" she asked, pulling the ledger closer. Mrs. Chen pointed to several entries. "Here's our occupancy for March, 341 room nights, but the income doesn't match. We should have taken in about $42,000, but only $29,000 was deposited in the hotel account." Molly frowned, scanning the pages. "And this happens every month?" "For at least the past year," Mrs. Chen confirmed. "I brought it to your uncle's attention several times, but his health was failing and he—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "He trusted his staff completely, perhaps too completely." "And you think Greg might be involved?" Molly asked, remembering how quickly the night manager had tried to turn her away. Mrs. Chen nodded slowly. "I have my suspicions. He started working here 8 years ago, but in the last 2 years he suddenly bought a new car, took expensive vacations, things his salary shouldn't cover." Molly thought for a moment. "If I'm going to find out what's happening, I need to do it carefully. If he realizes we suspect him, he might destroy evidence or run." "What do you have in mind?" Mrs. Chen asked. "I think," Molly said slowly, "I shouldn't tell everyone I'm the new owner just yet. Let's say I'm a consultant brought in to help improve the hotel. That way, I can watch how things really operate without people being on their best behavior." Mrs. Chen smiled, a hint of admiration in her eyes. "That's quite clever. It would give you time to observe and investigate." "Exactly. And it would explain why Lily and I are staying in the owner's suite. We're important consultants being given the VIP treatment." They spent the next hour reviewing more financial records. Molly discovered discrepancies not just in room bookings, but also in supply orders, maintenance expenses, and payroll. Someone had been systematically stealing from every part of the hotel's operation. "This is worse than I thought," Molly murmured, making notes. "We're talking about thousands of dollars every month." "Mr. Parker built this hotel from nothing," Mrs. Chen said quietly. "It breaks my heart to see someone taking advantage of his trust like this." Molly looked up from the papers. "We're going to fix this, Mrs. Chen, I promise." Over the next week, Molly settled into her role as a hotel consultant. She introduced herself to the staff as someone hired by the late owner's estate to evaluate the business. Greg had looked suspicious but couldn't openly challenge her since Mrs. Chen had approved her presence. Lily, meanwhile, had become the hotel's unofficial mascot. The housekeeping staff adored her, and she spent her days helping them make beds or folding napkins in the dining room. Mrs. Chen had arranged for a tutor to continue her schooling 3 times a week, while Molly worked on untangling the hotel's finances. On her 3rd day, Molly noticed something odd. An elderly couple checked in, clearly paying cash. But when she checked the registration book later, their room was marked as vacant. She watched Greg pocket the money without recording the transaction or putting it in the cash register. That night, after Lily was asleep, Molly sat at the small desk in the owner's suite, creating a spreadsheet on her laptop. She had been documenting every discrepancy she found: missing cash payments, inflated supply orders, phantom maintenance work that was paid for but never performed. A soft knock at the door interrupted her work. It was Mrs. Chen, carrying 2 mugs of tea. "I thought you might need this," she said, placing a steaming mug on the desk. "You've been working late every night." "Thank you," Molly said gratefully, taking a sip. "I'm starting to see the pattern. Greg isn't working alone. He's got help from at least 2 other staff members." Mrs. Chen sat in the armchair by the window. "Who?" "The maintenance man, Pete, and one of the weekend desk clerks, Darla. They're creating fake expenses and pocketing the difference." Molly ran a hand through her hair. "It's quite sophisticated, actually. They've been careful not to take too much at once." "What are you going to do?" Mrs. Chen asked. Molly closed her laptop. "I need more evidence before I confront them. And I need a plan for the hotel going forward." She looked around the beautifully furnished but outdated room. "This place has such potential, but it needs work." "It does," Mrs. Chen agreed. "The building itself is sound, but we've fallen behind on updates. Our computer system is ancient, the website hasn't been redesigned in a decade, and the dining room menu hasn't changed in years." "I've been thinking about that," Molly said, warming to the subject. "We need to focus on what makes this place special. Its history, the architecture, the ocean views. We could market it as a boutique experience rather than trying to compete with the big chain hotels in town." Mrs. Chen's eyes lit up. "Yes, and I've always thought we should offer afternoon tea on the porch. Tourists would love it." They spent the next hour brainstorming ideas for revitalizing the hotel. Special packages for honeymooners, partnerships with local tour companies, cooking classes featuring seafood caught that morning. "You know," Mrs. Chen said as she gathered the empty mugs, "you're nothing like what I expected when Mr. Patterson told me Mr. Parker's great niece would be taking over." "What did you expect?" Molly asked curiously. "Someone who would sell immediately, I suppose. Most people would. Running a hotel isn't easy, especially for someone with a child." Molly smiled softly. "A month ago, I would have agreed with you. But being here, it feels right somehow. Like this is where Lily and I were meant to end up." The next morning, Molly put the second part of her plan into action. She asked Mrs. Chen to schedule a staff meeting for that afternoon. "Just say it's a standard review from the consultant," she explained. "I don't want anyone getting nervous and running off." While helping Lily with her math lesson later that morning, Molly noticed Greg through the window talking intensely with Pete in the parking lot. They kept looking toward the hotel, their body language tense. Something was making them nervous. "Mom," Lily asked, pulling Molly's attention back to the workbook, "is 7 times 856? "That's right, sweetie," Molly said, still watching the men outside. "Very good." By afternoon, the small conference room was filled with staff, housekeepers, desk clerks, kitchen staff, and maintenance workers. Molly stood at the front with Mrs. Chen beside her. "Thank you all for coming," Molly began. "I've spent the past week evaluating the operations here at the Ocean View Inn, and I've found some areas that need immediate attention." She noticed Greg shifting uncomfortably in his seat at the back. Darla was staring at her phone, pretending to be bored. "But before we get to that," Molly continued, "there's something else I need to share with you all." She took a deep breath. "I'm not actually a consultant. My name is Molly Harper, and I'm Harold Parker's great-niece. As of 2 weeks ago, I am the owner of the Ocean View Inn." A wave of surprised murmurs swept through the room. Greg's face had gone pale. "And," Molly added, "I have some very serious concerns about how this hotel has been managed recently." The conference room fell silent after Molly's announcement. All eyes were fixed on her, some with surprise, others with concern, and a few with unmistakable fear. "As I was saying," Molly continued, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "I have serious concerns about how this hotel has been managed." She opened a folder on the table in front of her. "Over the past week, I found evidence of theft, fraud, and mismanagement that has been draining the Ocean View Inn of thousands of dollars every month." Greg stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. You can't just walk in here and start making accusations." "I'm not making accusations yet, Greg," Molly replied calmly. I'm stating facts. Facts that are backed up by these records. She held up the folder. Would you like me to share the details with everyone here? Or would you prefer we discuss this privately? With the police present? Greg's face flushed red. You're bluffing. You don't have anything. Molly pulled out several papers from her folder and began reading. March 15th. Room 212 checked in, paid cash, no record in the system, no deposit made. April 2nd. Maintenance. Supplies ordered and paid for, $200 worth, but only $400 worth actually delivered. The remainder was pocketed. She looked up. Should I continue? I have dozens more examples. From the back of the room, Pete, the maintenance man, suddenly bolted for the door. Mrs. Chen, anticipating this, had positioned Zoe and the hotel's elderly but still imposing security guard Bill at the exits. Pete skidded to a stop when he saw them blocking his way. Sit down, Pete, Molly said firmly. We're not finished. Darla was frantically texting under the table, her face pale. Molly walked over and held out her hand. Phone, please. You can't. Take my phone, Darla protested weakly. You're right, I can't, Molly agreed. But Officer Reynolds can. She nodded toward the door, where a police officer in uniform had just entered. He has some questions for you about those late-night cash deposits you've been making at the bank across town. Officer Reynolds, a middle-aged man with a serious expression, stepped forward. Ms. Harper has shared some concerning financial records with the department. We'd like all three of you, Greg, Pete, and Darla, to come down to the station to answer some questions. Greg's bravado crumbled. This is all a misunderstanding. I can explain everything. I'm sure you can, Officer Reynolds replied. You'll have plenty of time to do that. As the three were escorted out, Molly addressed the remaining staff. I want to be clear. I believe the three individuals who just left are the only ones involved in this scheme. The rest of you have been loyal to my uncle and to this hotel, and I'm grateful for that. She looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. The Ocean View Inn has been a part of this community for decades. It used to be a thriving business and a wonderful place to stay. I want to make it that way again, but I'll need your help. The head housekeeper, an older woman named Betty who had worked at the hotel for 20 years, raised her hand. Does this mean you're staying? You're not going to sell? Molly smiled. I'm staying. My daughter and I are making this our home, and I'm committed to turning this place around. A ripple of relief moved through the room. Many of the staff had feared losing their jobs if the hotel was sold to a chain or developer. I have ideas for improvements, Molly continued, but I want to hear yours too. You know this place better than I do, so please, share your thoughts with me or Mrs. Chen. We'll be making changes gradually, and I promise no one who works hard and cares about this place will lose their job. After the meeting, Molly felt drained, but relieved. She found Lily in the library drawing pictures with colorful markers. How did it go, Mom? Lily asked, looking up from her artwork. Good, I think, Molly said, sitting beside her daughter. The bad people are going to be in trouble and we're going to fix up our hotel and make it really special. I knew you could do it, Lily said with complete confidence. You always fix things. 6 months later, the Ocean View Inn had undergone a remarkable transformation. With the stolen money recovered and a small business loan secured, Molly had updated the most critical areas first. A new computer system, repairs to the plumbing and electrical work, and fresh paint for the exterior. The wraparound porch, once sagging and peeling, now gleamed with white paint and boasted comfortable wicker furniture where guests enjoyed afternoon tea while watching the ocean. The dining room served fresh local seafood, and the library had been transformed into a cozy gathering space where Molly hosted weekly storytelling sessions for local children. Mrs. Chen had stayed on as manager, her experience and knowledge proving invaluable. She and Molly had become not just colleagues but friends, often sharing evening tea after Lily had gone to bed. Tourism websites and travel blogs had begun to take notice of the charming boutique hotel with its personalized service and family-friendly atmosphere. Bookings had increased steadily, and for the first time in years they were fully booked for the upcoming summer season. Lily had thrived in her new environment, making friends at school and becoming a favorite among the hotel guests. She knew every nook and cranny of the old building and proudly gave special tours to children staying at the hotel. On a warm spring evening, Molly stood on the porch, watching the sunset over the ocean. Mrs. Chen joined her, carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. "I just got off the phone with a reporter from Travel Today magazine," Mrs. Chen said, handing Molly a glass. "They want to feature us in their Hidden Gems section next month." "That's wonderful," Molly exclaimed. "More good publicity is exactly what we need." "They're particularly interested in your story," Mrs. Chen added. "The single mom who inherited a struggling hotel and turned it around. They think it will inspire their readers." Molly sipped her lemonade, thinking about the journey that had brought her here. From sleeping in her car that first night to now owning a successful business, it seemed almost unbelievable. "You know what I think about sometimes?" she said quietly. "What if Greg had just given us a room that night? What if he had been kind instead of cruel? He might have had time to cover his tracks, to hide what he was doing." "So in a way, his rudeness was his downfall," Mrs. Chen observed. "Exactly. By turning us away, he gave me a reason to look more closely at everything." Molly shook her head. "It's strange how things work out sometimes." From inside the hotel came the sound of Lily's laughter as she helped Betty fold napkins for the dinner service. Molly smiled at the sound. "When I first inherited this place, I thought it was just a building, something I could sell for money to make our life easier," she admitted. "But now I realize it's so much more. It's a home, a community, a fresh start." She looked out at the ocean, golden in the setting sun. "I never imagined we could have all this." Mrs. Chen followed her gaze. "You earned it, with hard work and courage." Later that evening, as Molly tucked Lily into bed in their cozy apartment above the hotel, her daughter asked a question. "Mom, are you happy we came here?" Even though it was hard at first, Molly smoothed the blanket around her daughter and smiled. "I've never been happier, sweetie. Sometimes the best things in life come from the hardest beginnings. Like when Greg wouldn't let us stay." Lily yawned. "Exactly like that," Molly said, kissing her forehead. "Sometimes people who try to hold you back end up pushing you forward instead. They just don't know it yet." As Lily drifted off to sleep, Molly stood by the window, looking down at the hotel she now proudly owned. The lights along the porch illuminated, the sign she had restored, the ocean view in Esther 1925. A beacon of welcome for weary travelers, just as it had been for nearly a century, and just as it would continue to be for many years to come.